Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you a new version of this Lisianthes painting. I actually already did one on my channel before, but I think this one's better, so I wanted to give you better content. I also really enjoyed making this one. It was very different from the first one, and I'm just really excited. So first, I'm going to show you some of the supplies that I'm going to be using so that you can follow along if you choose to. Any palette knife will be fine. You'll also need a piping nail. You're going to need I use paper plates. You can use any palette that you choose. Also, I'm using parchment paper here. You can use acetate if that's what you prefer. Sometimes I use acetate as well. And then you're gonna make sure you have some water on hand, of course, and some piping bags. And the paints I'm going to be using are a dioxazine purple. You can also use a cake stand, a rotating cake stand. That is optional for this video. And then you're going to need a tray. This is a canvas wrapped in plastic. It works really great for this. I'm going to be using a Gaffrey dioxazine purple medium texture paint. I'm also going to be using a Gaffrey heavy texture paint in chartreuse and in white. So next I'm going to cut my piping bag, and I am going to place the piping tip inside. This is a piping tip number 127. In this video, I'm also using a piping tip number 13 and a piping tip 1M. You can also use a 2D. They're very similar. So I'm just making sure it's fitting snugly into that piping bag so that it won't fall backwards into the bag as I am piping. So first I'm going to take my palette knife and put some purple on there, and I'm going to stripe the bag, and I want this to be on the outside of my flower petals. So I'm going to put it on the skinny side of the piping tip. See how that's skinnier? It's pointed. That's going to be the outside of the petal. And then I'm just going to fill up the bag the rest of the way with white. And then once you've got it in there, give it a shake just so that the air bubbles escape a little bit better. And then it is time to grab your piping nail, put a dot of paint onto the piping nail, and then pick up a parchment paper, and you're ready to start. So you're going to lean the tip of your piping tip inwards a little bit, and you're going to go around in a circle. And then when you move to the next layer, you're going to lean it or have it straight up and down. And then you're going to do like 3 petals. And then I like to do 5 leaning outwards. So you can kind of think of it as kind of leaning inward to create the center of the flower, and then straight up and down for the next set of petals, and then outward leaning for the final set of petals. And you should experiment with this on your own too, and see what you like, and see how it feels in your hand when you're doing certain things, because a lot of my practice has come from just trying new things and seeing what happens. So I find that's a very helpful way to learn, is by experience. I learn by doing quite a bit. So here I'm showing you a different angle so you can kind of see how I am creating these. I really like to do that swirl in the middle. And then sometimes, so for this particular video, I wanted a variety of different flowers. Now here you can see what happens if you don't like a flower. You can just scoop it up and put it back in the bag. It is totally fine. It's not a problem. And then we're just going to keep going, and I sped this up a little bit for you just so you can still get the value of seeing it, getting the repetition, but you don't need to, you know, see everything super slow, slow motion, real time. So for this one, as you can see, I just did an inner and then an outer. I didn't end up doing 3 sets of petals. So for this particular video, what I wanted to do was create a lot of variety in my flowers, because Lisianthes are like that. Sometimes they are very small, neat buds. Sometimes they're halfway open, and sometimes they're all the way open. So I really was experimenting a lot with different types of variety. So that was really fun. So here's actually the part where I sped it up. So you can just see how different they all look from each other. And I did that intentionally because I really wanted a variety. And you can, of course, get a lot more uniformity if you choose. It's just a matter of doing the same technique over and over. Whereas for this one, I decided to kind of stick with the same technique, but then have more variables to it. So that's something I'm practicing a bit more with right now, because I'm working on roses and stuff like that. Look, some of them I didn't like, so I just took them, scooped them up, and back in the bag they go. Now the thing is, if you're choosing to put them back in the bag, it's better to work fast, because here you can see I'm just checking to see how many I need to make. Because at this point I was not really loving how they looked. A lot of them were looking a little bit iffy. It just happens that way sometimes. It's all good. It's just part of the learning process. So when I was doing this, I actually was using my old phone to record as well, because I was trying to get as many different angles as I could, because I wanted to show you guys very clearly how I do this. So it's easy to understand. And I didn't like recording with both my old phone and my new phone. So what I've started to do is just use my old phone, or sorry, use only my new phone, and just move it around as I go. And here you can see up close, once the camera focuses, look pretty good. So I'm just learning and discovering some new ways of doing things and filming, and I have some really good footage in this video for you. When we were working on the white and green Lisianthes, they look so beautiful. I'm so excited for you to see it. So this time we're going to stripe the bag on the inside of the petal. So that would be on the wide end of the piping tip. And I'm just going to grab some chartreuse green and my palette knife And then here's how I'm gonna do it, because I just want it to be fun. Sometimes you can just put it inside the bag and it'll be just fine as well. And just fill it up the rest of the way with your titanium white. Just squishing it a little bit as I put the white in. And that's just because I want to make sure that the white gets a beautiful blend with that green before it comes out. So sometimes when you're doing a two-tone color, you're going to experience that one color wants to come out of the tip first, and then it kind of dominates that blend for the first bit. So what's really helpful is if both colors can come out at the same time, then it looks how you want it to look. So here you can just see how I'm leaning the tip inward and then kind of going around straight up and down, creating those 3 petals. And sometimes I just didn't end up going with that 5-petal outside because I found they were looking really, really pretty. And of course, a little 5-petal flower. And this color combination is so pretty. I don't know how I'm going to use it more in the future, but I just really want to make a lot more flowers that look like this. So I decided to speed up this process, and then I'm going to show you a close up in a minute of how to film. And this is new for me. I just figured it out in this video, but look at this. If I set the tripod in between my arms as I'm piping this, and I can watch my phone and make sure everything is in frame at the same time as I am getting close-up shots, I think this just makes the most beautiful video I have ever filmed, and I'm so proud of it, and I hope you guys like it. But you can really see up close how it should look from your point of view. So you can see how I go for that petal, I just kind of stack it up, then down. And you can see the more you kind of shake and swivel your tip, the more ruffles you're going to get. And Lisianthes are very, very ruffly flowers. So I think that's a very, very important thing to do for this specific flower. And then of course you want to make sure that your bag is tightly, like you want to twist your bag every time before you go back in to pipe another flower, because you want to have the most control as possible in your piping bag. If it gets too loose because you don't have any tension, your flowers are going to look sloppy. You're not going to have the control you want to have. So it's really important to practice with that as well. See, there you go. You can see what I mean. I just love these flowers so much. They're so pretty. And then I just have this piece of acetate that I'm going to squish the last of my remaining paint onto. And these will serve well as buds, or I can use them in another project as well. See how I twist my bag every time after too much paint comes out, because I need to keep it taut. So for this next part, I'm going to be working on the background or the canvas. So I'm just going to first squeegee all my white paint towards the front of the bag. I like doing this. It's very fun. So I'm using a 10 by 10 canvas here, and I'm just going to place some of the heavy textured white paint towards the outside of this canvas. And then I'm going to take some of that original dioxazine purple, not too much, but because it's such a bright, bright shade, you don't need very much. And I'm setting that into the middle and then just kind of smoothing it out because I want to create a gradient that goes from darker purple to lighter towards the edge. But you can see how dark that purple is. So I was smoothing that out first so that the white can go over the top and it can have a bit more of a correct look to it. And then I just use my palette knife to smooth things back and forth and get that color I was looking for. And this went on for a while, so I just decided to speed it up for you so you can see the faster version of it. And once I had smoothed it out quite a bit, I decided to grab a brush so I could do the sides. And I made sure it was a coarse brush because I really like the drag marks it leaves. I really like those, so I did it on purpose. And I just thought it made the background look super zippy, you know? And that was super cool. And then I worked on this part for a while. Then I decided that I wanted to use some of my old paint scraps. I like to create a lot of height in the middle of my painting so that it has more of a realistic bouquet feel. So it's a perfect spot to use scraps of paint to create height. And then I just went and grabbed my piping bag, and then I looked through my tin at my piping tips, and then I chose my 1M tip, and this is where you can use a 2D if you have one. They're very similar. I don't really know why they're different numbers. It doesn't make any sense to me. And then you're just going to make sure that you cut your piping bag the right size and you get your tips stuck firmly in there. And then, well, let me not jump ahead. So then I decided to grab my chartreuse and I squished it in there, and then I actually ended up squishing it through the bag. And my intention or my reason for doing this is because I wanted to cover all the sides of the bag. And I wanted to open it up so that there was a space in the middle where I could pipe the white paint. So it would have a white center and a green edge on every piped dollop. So then when I went to pipe in the white, I just made sure to kind of squeeze it at the bottom so that the white paint actually gets that green color caught on the sides before it goes out of the bag. And then I just made sure to shake all the air out of it like usual. And then I could start piping. Oh, actually first, I decided to take a little bit of the green that I just gotten ready, and I decided to do a little bit of a background branch type of thing. So I just decided to take some of that green and I put it in a separate bag, and then I, you know, took it over there and I started doing my branches and stuff. Just speed it up a little bit so that you can just see the quick version of it. I just like to do a lot of curves and S shapes because I just think they're very pretty. And I just did these as a background, and then I added some dots and bud looking things as well, just because it adds a little more variety and I always like a little more texture. So that's what I decided to go with. And then I grabbed my drop flower bag, and then I just started creating the circle, filling it in, making sure there weren't gaps when I was covering the scraps that were underneath. Because here's the thing, if you have gaps in your paint when you are piping it, when it dries and the paint shrinks back a little bit, what you're going to be left with is a little bit more of the gaps. Like, they're going to be bigger. You're going to see more through it. So just bear that in mind. So then after I used all the white that was in the bag, I just added a bit of clear and I continued doing my stamping and finishing up the height that I needed before I started adding in all my flowers. And I really love to do the stamping method, I guess, technique. I do it like every single painting I do. It's really fun for me. I enjoy it quite a bit. So that's pretty cool. And then, of course, I grab my dry flowers and I start placing them in there wherever I think they should go. And the thing about using the clear to do that top layer is because the clear is not going to fight because it has no pigment actually. Like, the white would be very bright next to these white flowers. So I wanted to use the clear with a little bit of green pigment because it will fade into the background and really allow the flowers to be the star of the show, which is exactly what I was going for. And I had created, I believe, 10 flowers of each kind, maybe 11, because I usually like to make one or a few extras depending on what I'm doing. Of course, I'm really excited to show you the reveal. But first, we need to add some centers as well to our flowers, which I did by using a 13 tip and a little bit of chartreuse and yellow, if I'm correct. And of course, it's always good to sign my name. I like signing my name in piping. I just think that's really cool and unique, and I haven't seen anyone do that, so I like doing that for me. It's fun. I like the 13 tip because it's kind of like a star tip, but it's really, really small. So it's the perfect thing to do all these centers and really make them stand out like crazy. And here you go. Here you can see exactly what I was talking about. So this is my new and improved Lisianthes video, artwork, whatever. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you want to see anything specific, please let me know in the comments. Thanks for hanging out with me. I hope you have a great day. Bye.